The whole question in Prairie Silence is, what is it about the silent land and the silent people in the prairie that allows us to be as close as humans can be? Like, we're going to be there for each other, but yet never reveal our deepest truth. So that's what I was writing into over the course of probably 10 years.
Welcome to Created Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth.
And I'm freezing.
It's 40 degrees there,
It is 40 degrees, but I am at my friend Leisha's because she and my daughter are at the tree lighting, not the one at Rockefeller Center. That was on Wednesday. That one is Insanity. But just her building has a tree lighting. And they are at that, and there's a sing-along, and it's going to be amazing because to live in this building, you have to belong to the Actors Union. So this is like singers.
Yeah.
Holiday sing-along and tree lighting, like Alicia Keys grew up in this building. So anyway, they are so conscious of the world and doing good in the world that the heat turns off every 4 hours.
Oh,
and you have to turn it back on. So like the heat is never just on when no one's in their apartment.
Oh, well, that's really good.
You have to be here and turn it on. But I don't live here and I don't know how to turn it on.
Oh, I see. Okay, back to the whole freezing
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
I know it's way too long of a story. So they're not with me. I'm in someone else's apartment and the heat has turned off as it should to save the earth.
Yeah, here it was last week. It was like 15 below during the night. It was pretty cold, but now we're up into the balmy 70s. I wish it was the 70s. No, we're in the 20s, much different 20s.
And I realized that 40s is even warmer than 20s, but I will say 40s is not warm when you're the Rockettes out there last Wednesday in just their costumes. So it's all relative to what you're wearing or whether the apartment you're in is heated.
Yeah, so I've just been busy with, there's a bajillion things to do when you are planning to go somewhere. Just
getting ready. New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand in T-minus like 23.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of making sure that everything is set at church and at home and everything before I go so I can go. But
at least you have fully functional young adult children who can actually take care of this home.
Yep, they'll be fine. They'll be and that'll be good. Yeah.
So that's your mode?
Yeah, that is totally my mode right now. It's like, oh yeah, Christmas. But then,
yeah, Christmas is a small blip on the way.
Yeah, it's a blip this year. It's a beautiful blip.
Yes.
So Jesse is going to go to Fargo later today. She's going shopping. And that reminds me of our guest for today.
Who wrote Prairie Silence.
She grew up the whole time in North Dakota, and this book that she wrote, which is a beautiful book, it is a memoir that North Dakota, her homeland, plays a big part in it as she tells her story.
I have quoted her since then because we already talked to her. And in one of my coaching groups, just everyone, when I explained this whole idea around you can be as close as you could be to these humans, you would stick up for them, you would come give the shirt off your back, like they say in the Music Man, but that you won't reveal your deepest truths in order to keep the peace, but then no one is being authentic.
Yeah.
And they all got it. It doesn't matter if you're from North Dakota.
Yeah.
For her, it was prairie.
Yeah, it was very true for her, but I do think it's a universal understanding. People will get it. If they read that book, that people will understand. So I know people will enjoy hearing this conversation today with Melanie Hoffert.
Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me and having me.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a nice place. You're traveling, right?
I am. I should say we're stranded in Madison, Wisconsin. So there's like snowfall behind. There's a baby in the other room.
I heard about you from Paul Luder, who said to say hello to you.
He's a dear soul.
Yeah, he's a friend of the pod, as we like to say.
Wonderful.
Yes. And we usually start by asking our guests to take a moment to introduce themselves to our listeners.
Sure. My name's Melanie Hoffert. I live in Minneapolis, grew up in rural North Dakota, and part of my creative journey was I wrote a memoir, which I think is how I connected with Paul early on, over 10 years ago now, called Prairie Silence. So in addition to that, I work in marketing at a foundation, and at age 50, had a baby. Well, I didn't have a baby. My wife birthed the baby, and so now we have a little one. So that's kind of in a nutshell who I am and where I'm at in life.
I love that. I had a baby.
We're in the
same
was
boat
saying.
now of raising a small child.
I'm so excited to now know you. And
I know it's hard to find people.
yes,
So, well, let's talk about Prairie Silence
sure.
first. I haven't finished it, but I was able to start reading it. And I have to say, I really love how you talk about North Dakota. Like, I grew up in rural west central Minnesota, and so I could feel a lot of, similar feelings in how you described things. And there was this one line, I had to write it down, when you were going for a walk with your mom and she put on all
Yeah,
these different clothes and you called it the clothing equivalent of a hot dish.
exactly.
And
Yes.
I was like, I knew exactly what you meant,
Yes.
And I used to love going for long walks with my mom. And like, it just, you have a beautiful way of transporting people to the moment.
Thank you.
And so, did you think about writing this book for quite a while? How did it come about?
So it's a really pertinent question, especially where I'm at right now in my life with writing. But I did not set out to write a book. I set out to sort of make meaning of life. And Prairie Silence was born out of this question I was chasing, which is why is it I've now moved to Minneapolis from the farm, knew that I was gay, was able to talk about it, in the city. But then when I hit the gravel roads, it was just like I couldn't. And so the whole question in Prairie Silence is what is it about the silent land and the silent people in the prairie that allows us to be as close as humans can be? Like we're going to be there for each other, but yet never reveal our deepest truth. And so that's kind of what I was writing into over many years. Like over the course of probably 10 years, I was just writing different essays. And I then decided, okay, I'm reflecting on the coming of age and my silence and trying to break my silence. But I also went home for a month to farm. Well, my dad wouldn't say that I actually farmed, but I went home to observe, the place that I was from and also think about how, and Ruth, you might identify with this, like I'm part of a generation that left, like one of the last generations to grow up in rural America to understand sort of that way of life. And so I also was thinking about what does that mean? So the book was kind of a lot of questions as opposed to me sitting down and saying, I have to write a book, if that makes sense.
Oh, so it took like a
Yeah.
long time that you wrote this long period of time.
Yes.
And now it's been out. Is it about 10 years old? Is that?
Yeah, I published the soft cover came out in 2013 and then the hard in 2014. So it's been a while. And I think part of my problem is why I connected to my creative self right now is I didn't sit down to write a book, but after that book came out, I felt the pressure to sit down and write a book, right?
Oh.
Like the next one has to come. And so I'm like, well, what do I write about? Because I'm a creative nonfiction writer. I've now learned, fast forward all these many years, that I have to live life in order to have the material that I need to dig into to be able to make sense of the world. And so I've since tried to let go of that pressure of the book and instead reflect on the days ahead of publishing Prairie Silence, where I was just trying to make meaning of life and of art and to be in my moments where writing was my companion. And your podcast is very timely in that I've been in a little bit of a renaissance where for years and years and years, I was struggling to have the confidence, even though I had come off of a period of time where I managed to get an agent, managed to get a great publisher, managed to publish a book, all these things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, so now I'm like trying to live back into this feeling of no, like I'm just going to be a writer and we'll see what comes of it.
So we have a lot of people who are also creatives who listen to this podcast and some are authors. And how did it go for you with sharing the book with,
Oh,
how did that process go? Did you do a lot of sharing it with book groups?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I will say two things, especially for those folks who are writing memoir, creative nonfiction, or revealing fiction that is obviously based on life. I was both at that time celebrating, like, oh my gosh, I have a book in the world and this is the best time in my life. And oh my goodness, I want to put my head in the sand because I felt so exposed.
Yes.
So when the book came out, my marketing brain, like professionally or as a marketer, had to push my creative and vulnerable self along. And I was like, listen, you have got to get out. So I did a lot of readings. I went all over the country doing readings and it was really amazing. I had a lot of book clubs at the time and a lot of them were word of mouth where people would read about a review or someone would tell them about the book. And so I made myself available during that that time for as much as I could. The hardest, though, was to go back home. So I was invited to a couple of readings in Wapaton, North Dakota, which is near my hometown of Wyndmere, North Dakota. And I was like, I'm not going. I can't go. I can't go. And it was amazing to show up in that community and to have these places packed full of people who were very, very supportive and who, I was like, oh, they're going to judge me because I wrote about my reconciling my silence, but I never did. And so this was like the reconciliation and process. So yes, it's a long-winded way of saying I did as much as I could to promote the book, get it out there, do podcasts at the time. I did interviews, including public radio and TPT and some other venues like that. So it was really important to do.
So I've been to Wapaton, North Dakota. I went to high school in Fargo.
Oh, sure. Yes.
So, some game or something was there. Yeah. How do the people of Wapaton react to your thesis statement about this prairie silence, that we will be there for each other no matter what, but we're not revealing our deepest truths?
Don, such a good question, because what happened is, like I said, they showed up, and then after the reading, people would pull me aside and tell me like how much it resonated, or they would tell me something that they had been holding for years and years and years. And again, not about necessarily being gay.
No, just their silence.
Yeah, but that did come up. But other people just saying like, I felt like I was always alone because I experienced XYZ. And your book, like I connected with the book through that. And I got emails and emails and emails of people that were like, okay, yes, that is a phenomenon. That silence that lingers in all of us from, North Dakota, right? The North Dakotans.
Yes, the stoicism.
Yes. And so I think it was a lot of one-on-one conversations. And some people did share with me that reading the book facilitated some sort of courage in them to then have a conversation they needed to have. So there were a couple of breakthrough moments. And so that was very special for me.
But you named a universal truth to them.
Yeah.
And then you became a safe space to reveal their particular.
Yes, exactly.
That's what art should do.
Yes.
You nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. In that instance, it felt like it was meaningful for some people. So it meant a lot.
And I bet everywhere you went in the country, there were people who wanted to tell you about their North Dakota connections.
Oh, yes, for sure. Like, okay, they had some North Dakota connection. I was like, we're probably cousins. I don't know. So you can always drill down on a commonality, which is really pretty cool.
Yeah. So tell us about, what are your creative projects looking like right now? You said you're working on a memoir.
Yeah, I've been working on a memoir, and you're talking about the universal truth that comes from art making. And what I learned during the process of writing and then letting my book go into the world and be its own thing is that there is as much that comes back from the book as you put out into the world.
Ooh.
And so I've been kind of writing about that because my entire life changed from writing Prairie Silence. My current wife, she is my only wife.
Current and only.
Exactly. Her mom gave her the book for her 30th birthday, and she was living in New Orleans, finishing up law school, and read the book and was one of those people during the time that reached out to me to say, hey, I'm from Wapaton. Yes, I have a common experience. And she happened to be coming to Minneapolis the following weekend and just said, I'd love to grab a glass of wine if you're available. So we had really an incredible night of sharing stories and like connecting and then drilling down, like we just talked about, drilling down on all the people we had in common, including her mom and my aunt shared an office for years. So fast forward, it was a very complicated unwinding of life that we both had to do based on where we were, but she was never going to come back to the Midwest. She was going to be in New Orleans or had planned to go to the East Coast and ended up coming back here for me. And so then I was never going to get married, got married. I was never going to have a kid. Fast forward, had a kid. So that's a long-winded way to say one of my projects is like to write about that, like the profound energy creation that comes from us telling our stories and putting it into the world. Like it literally rewrote my life. Yes. So that coupled with, as part of that creative nonfiction memoir process, and Ruth, I think I read that you are in Fergus Falls right now. Yeah. So we have a cabin outside of Battle Lake, so very close. And I love water. And the first book was about the prairie, and the land was sort of a character. And so I've been writing about water and another landscape of my childhood, which was the lakes area, because we would go on the weekends. This book, along with now this reconciliation of age and parenthood. And so that's like my nonfiction project that I've been chipping away at for years. And I have published several essays that I'm working back into that book. And then just recently, I decided to start writing fiction because I connected to the stories that we've talked about and I've heard over the years and just grew up with. I have so much that is like in my universe or in my ether, I'm like, you know what? If I could just start to write about these stories that I hold that aren't part of my life experience, I think I would unlock a whole arena for myself. And so I've also been working on a fiction book, which is an interesting thing to have different projects going as a writer. And I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but I just have a couple of things, including where a young kid suffocated in beans that are just sort of like coming to the surface for me. So I've been writing about that. So those are my worlds, my fiction book that I'm just starting, and then my creative nonfiction memoir book, which I've been working on since the other book came out, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Do you also lead, or I read something, do you lead like creative writing workshops?
Yeah, I did. Again, right when the book came out, I taught a class at the Loft and
Ooh.
Literary Center. And I also did a project where I went across North Dakota and taught some writing classes at senior centers and stuff like that. So, yes,
Oh,
I've done a little bit of teaching and speaking at colleges and stuff, but it hasn't been a huge part of what I've done.
okay. So let's talk a little bit more about your writing practice. Like, do you have certain times of day that you like to write, certain circumstances that you're like, I need to listen to this music?
I love the question, and I'm so excited to dig even more deeply into your podcast to hear what other people have said.
Yeah.
I just love to hear about people's routines, and I've done a lot of different things over the years. I would say my best writing is in the morning. Now, especially with the baby, I'm going to bed at 8 and getting up at 5, trying to get in some time before he wakes. And so over the years, I've been more of a binge writer where I have just been like, okay, I'm going all in and I'll write, write, write. And as of late, just in the last year and a half with the baby coming, I decided I have got to change my practice. I cannot just wait for inspiration to strike me. And I know like how many successful writers have said you have to write every day, you have to keep your creative practice. I've never done that ever. So it's been just a little over a year now where I've tried to write every single day. And in the mornings, in terms of my setting, have to have good lighting. I have to have mood, have to like do all the things. I can't write necessarily with music unless it's maybe some classical music, but I've really found that to be fruitful. And I'd be curious about you too and your creative practices too. But like once the tap is on, it allows me to just jump right back in every day as opposed to like having to do the lead up of what am I doing and what am I
Right.
writing. And so that's been really wonderful.
A baby
Yeah.
shortens your on-ramp significantly.
Yes, it has. And I was very worried about having a child. And I started before he came, I started to flip all the scenarios. Like, what if I am more structured? What if I have more time? What if I get more sleep? Just change my mental constitution around it. And yeah, I found that like just sticking to that daily writing practice, which I don't know that I would have ever come up with had baby not come into the picture, has been really great for me.
Yeah. I often talked about how before I had kids, I used to write sermons. I would take so much time with them, like crafting just the perfect way to say all the things. But having kids made me a lot quicker about like, I've got a task, I've got to sit down, I've got to get this.
Yes.
Made me more efficient.
Yes.
Because
That's
I
what I'm
just,
experiencing. Yes.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
did publish a book just before my daughter turned 2.
Okay.
And I would walk around with the stroller and just think through the next chapter and kind of make voice notes for myself.
Oh,
And then
sure.
after she was asleep, I would type them out. But then to put all those pieces together, I actually had her favorite babysitter come and I spent 36 hours at a hotel.
Well, you did. Okay.
To
Yes.
just have a very long, holding so many pieces and organizing them all. First required sleeping and then putting them all together.
That's good to hear. Emily has been encouraging me to just go away. I'll take the baby for a weekend, go
Yeah,
right. You got to
that's
focus
okay.
on this. And so I have not yet taken her up on it. But I think just hearing you say that, I know that I would need that uninterrupted time to make some significant leaps with all the things I'm working on. Good advice.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite creators?
Oh, goodness. This is kind of funny, but I will watch documentaries on singer-songwriters. I love how they do the bursts, like they have short stints. And so, like, you can imagine whatever I can find, I will just go and watch them. I love Anne Lamont. I mean, I just think, like, from a writing advice perspective, she has just going back to her always brings something up in me. So yeah, like in terms of The Who, I'm not so much The Who as I will just go gobble up different documentaries or read books on writing. I really appreciate, even though I don't read a lot of his fiction, Stephen King's writing book on writing. Like I've read that several times.
So good.
Yeah, just the process stuff. Again, like I was sharing why I'm so excited about your podcast. I just love to hear about the creative process. There's something really meditative about that.
Yeah. It's been really interesting, I think, for us to hear people's different take. We often ask about how much of creativity do you think is inspiration and how much is discipline. And we just had our first person, I think, say that it was 100% discipline for him, and we had
Right.
never heard that before.
There was
And
no inspiration. He is just knocking it out.
Wow, that's a dedication there to not be
Right.
inspired, but to just drill in.
It's a
Yes.
certain personality, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and his books tend to be more academic
Yeah.
books too. So, but also I was curious, how do you see creativity and spirituality connect?
I think they're sort of one and the same for me. I think that when I took this turn where I decided that I was going to just write every day because a baby was coming, it also, and I don't have to go into it, corresponded with like a really hard chapter that Emily and I were traveling through, not together, but just something that was happening in our lives. And I think that I started to also receive, like decide that I wanted to be a recipient, if that makes sense. Like I'm going to put my antenna out and be open to the universe a little bit more. So like in terms of the spirituality, I think that there is something to us being more receptacles for what's supposed to pass through, as opposed to the impulse sometimes is to make and create and just push through. So I think that's where the spirit comes in. I think there's some sort of mysterious force beyond us that calls us to create. And I also would say that when I am in a creative mode, my world and my universe is so much larger than if I'm not. Because if I'm not writing, things at work that just spin out of control and become so big, if I'm writing, it's like, that's not me. And so to be in a creative space really helps me connect to a bigger part of myself.
Love it.
I wanted to ask also, as you think about projects or maybe upcoming projects, is there anything that Dawn could give you some coaching on today?
Yes.
She's a fabulous coach.
I'm so excited.
Oh, good.
I have so many things that I need coaching on, but I would say that as I was thinking about coming to this conversation, the one thing that keeps coming up for me is everything we've been talking about this timeline. The fact that I have not published a book, did my book and then didn't publish a book 2 years later, it almost shut me down. So I have this insecurity that keeps coming up in me that, oh, I should have done XYZ. And then it keeps me from creating. So I would love any coaching around being able to let go of what I know is a fake timeline in my brain. Like people can create at any stage. And so that's one. And then anything you can share, like now incorporating a child into my blender of being a creative human would be also very welcomed.
How old is this baby?
He is 4 months old.
So it's like
Oh.
you're not even sleeping yet.
Well, I am selfishly sleeping in another room because I'm not the milk mama.
Oh, right.
I'm getting a little bit more sleep, but it's a lot.
It is still a lot.
Yeah, I have to relieve Emily in the morning, which is my writing time, right? But she hasn't slept, so I have to take him.
Right. The timeline, what have you already tried? Or it's just like this thing rattling around and you have not tried to solve it at all?
What have I tried? I mean, everything. I journal about it. I've tried to just dump back in, and I've tried to like turn off this need for external validation. But I will say, when I get an essay published, like it fuels me in a different way than I can by just saying, oh, don't worry, there's no timeline. You can just be a writer. And so I have just started to do this daily writing practice because it's been all these many years and I don't have the next book. So I'm just trying to let go of the deliverable and the timeline. So those are the things that I've already tried.
Is there like a fake voice in your head telling you that you're late?
There's a voice. I don't know if it's fake, but
Okay. Do we have a name for that person?
Oh, goodness. That's a good question. I could name it. I have to think about.
What's a name? Like if I say a name, you might know someone with that name. So you need to say the name.
Oh, let's call the name Hector.
Hector. Interesting. It's a man.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So can we have some things to say to Hector? Thank you for your concern. That'll be all. Like you're dismissing him like a terrible assistant.
I could do that. Yes.
You could write him a job review.
That would be good.
Just some of these like tactile, like Hector is separate from you.
Yeah.
He's not actually you. That's why I called him fake.
Yes. No, I think that's good. I also think it comes up when I see, and I'm not like a really envious or jealous person by nature, but I will run into someone who published a book the year I did. And then since then, 4 have come out like that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so behind. That sort of thing comes up for me once in a while too.
Are they also a marketing executive who got married and their partner moved to Minneapolis and then has a baby?
I appreciate that. No, I'm so glad you honed in on that because not only did when Emily came to Minneapolis, she founded and started a nonprofit organization. And so my life also really focused on supporting that endeavor, which was giant, like a whole restaurant, a whole arm of fellowship, then became a law firm. Like there's been a lot that has gone into other things over these many years. And so I do try to honor and acknowledge that piece of my life as well. Still, but it still creeps up. Hector's still there.
What if there's a collage of all the things that have happened in the last 5 years?
Yes, that's a big collage.
Or a timeline. You have a concrete sequential brain.
I don't, but I can do the collage.
So a collage.
Yep.
And the little bubbles are bigger or smaller because some of these things you're saying are gigantic.
Yeah.
So like the piece of paper is whatever, 9 by 9. That's not paper.
Yeah,
And then some things are just taking up more space. There is no more space.
that's true. There has been little space.
But you're like, oh, but look what I did.
That's good. I've done a lot.
Is that too abstract and weird?
No, it's not at all. I think visualizing it would actually probably be helpful because new job, new life, new wife, new house, like moving my life, like there's a lot.
And it's so exciting to think of all the stories that are going to come out of all of that
Yeah.
period as you have time to write about it now.
That's very true.
Does this come near to solving the problem that you set?
I think it is a new tool. I like the
Okay.
collage idea. I like the bubbles. I'm going to map it out. And because I think like honoring that I have been a creative person. Like I have created other things over these many years. And so just looking at that and now making room for this creation.
And Hector doesn't get to decide that only the book publishing is the barometer of whether you are a creative person.
Yes. Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Something I wanted to ask that I didn't ask before that sometimes our listeners are just interested. As you wrote the book, how did you go about finding your publisher?
Oh, sure. Yes. This maybe will be helpful. The first essay I ever published, and this I know is an anomaly, but I got contacted by an agent, like a big agent out of New York, and
my
it didn't
gosh.
work. So it was like disaster. In my mind, in my young mind, I'm like, okay, someone contacted me and they asked for my material. So I sent them my material and I was nowhere. I didn't know how to put a book proposal together. I didn't know about anything. I just like sent some chapters that I had been writing at the time and they wrote back and were very complimentary about my writing, but was like, nobody's going to read about North Dakota.
Who's even heard of it?
Yeah, we're not going to take you on. And so at that time, I had the impulse to just stop writing, but something in me told me, no, just keep going. So it was 4 years later after that happened that I felt much more prepared. So I queried agents and I sent my first batch out and got rejections. Like maybe I sent 8 letters. I don't exactly remember. Then I sent another batch and my agent came through and reached out and wanted to take me on. And so I was like ecstatic, another New York agent. And from that, the process is equally as unnerving because just because I had an agent didn't mean that anyone was going to publish it. So she then had to sell the book to a publisher. And so we went through that process and Beacon Press, which is an independent publisher in Boston, was interested. And so my agent helped me think about deepening the book a little bit to be ready for them. And so we did that. So I didn't find the publisher, she did. And then when I worked with Beacon, they ended up doing a pretty light copy edit, but took out 2 chapters. And so that was like, how do I let go, 2 whole chapters?
Yeah.
But in the end, of course, it made the book better, right?
Right. They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. So that was my process of finding or getting to a publisher, and they were really great to work with. So that's how I did it, but it's not how everyone does it, I know.
I love hearing those stories about how people make those connections. And then did you feel like they were helpful to you in marketing the book? And
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a huge budget, but they made a lot of connections. They had a publicist, so helped set up some interviews. I, though, at the time was working for Teach for America, and my job took me to all these different places. And so I lined up some book readings and they helped me. I got myself there, but like in San Francisco, in Chicago, in New York. So I had these places. And so I did these readings, which were nice because I had people in those different cities and I could get a crowd out. So that was fun too. And in Minneapolis, of course, and Wapton.
yeah.
New York,
Yeah.
San Francisco, Wahpeton.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think that just important for people to hear that there's all sorts of ways that people end up sharing their work. And you were able to combine it sort of with doing your job too. But I mean, what a great way to get your work shared.
Yeah, it was good. And I think now so much has changed with, social media, of course, was a thing then, but not as big as it is certainly now. And so I think that there's probably easier ways to reach people than having to fly across the country and be in person, though I do think that in-person reading is still a really fun experience to have as a writer.
And more powerful.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
deeper,
agreed.
not wider.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, as someone who has published a book and is working on another one, if a young author came to you for advice, what's one piece of advice you might want to give?
I would say definitely just keep writing and try to, because I'm giving myself this advice, try to let go of that and journey and to trust your voice. I think, though, that being said, you do have to get to a place where you start to bring things together and do a final product. So it's a little bit like let yourself have the space to create and to discover and to chase the beauty, but then also take the time to pull together the structure and research. The other thing I didn't mention about my publishing journey is to find agents that I wanted to query, I went and read thank yous and acknowledgments from authors that
So smart.
that I really loved and who I thought would probably like my book. So that's how I ended up finding the people I wanted to send letters to. So that too is something that I would recommend. Follow the people that you love and the work that they're doing and see what they've done and you can hook in some way.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. You have to promise that when your next book comes out that we can talk to you again. Okay?
Absolutely. Yes. I would love to stay in touch.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you both. This has been a delightful way to spend a snowed in day for sure.
Thank you for joining us for Created Creative.
We're so glad that you could be with us today. And don't forget to go create something.
Go create something.